What if I told you that one text message confession completely destroyed the biggest rap group of the 2010s? That a family betrayal so deep it split cousins apart forever and left one member tragically gone before they could ever make things right? The Migos empire didn't just crumble because of creative differences or money disputes. No, this goes way deeper. We're talking about alleged bedroom secrets, broken trust between blood relatives, and a revelation so explosive that it sent shockwaves through the entire hip-hop world. Today, we're diving into the bombshell confession that Quavo supposedly made about Offset and Saweetie, and how this single moment of truth allegedly brought down rap's most dominant trio. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why some secrets should never see the light of day, but this one did. And the fallout was absolutely devastating. And real quick, if you like getting the unfiltered side of hip-hop drama, make sure you hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what's next. To understand how this whole mess started, we need to go back to 2018, when Diamante Harper, better known as Saweetie, first entered Quavo's world. At the time, she was just another aspiring rapper, trying to make it in the industry, posting freestyle videos on Instagram and hoping someone would notice. But Quavo definitely noticed. And when he slid into her DMs, everything changed for both of them. Their relationship seemed like a fairy tale at first. Quavo was at the peak of his success, with Migos dominating the charts, and Saweetie was this beautiful, talented woman who matched his energy perfectly. They went public in September 2018, and the internet absolutely lost its mind. Here was one of hip-hop's most eligible bachelors finally settling down, and he chose someone who wasn't just arm candy, but actually had bars to back up her beauty. But here's where things get interesting, and this is something most people don't know about their relationship timeline. Before Saweetie even became a household name, she was already moving in circles that included the entire Migos crew. Industry insiders have revealed that she was frequently at studio sessions, group hangouts, and family gatherings long before she and Quavo made things official. This means she had plenty of opportunities to get close to not just Quavo, but also Offset and Takeoff. The early days of their relationship were pure social media gold. Quavo was showering her with expensive gifts, taking her on luxury vacations, and even appearing in her music videos. Remember when he bought her that custom Bentley for her birthday? The internet went crazy, with fans calling them relationship bulls and praising Quavo for treating his woman like a queen. Saweetie, meanwhile, was using the relationship to catapult her career to new heights. Her streams were going through the roof, brand deals were pouring in, and suddenly everyone wanted to work with Quavo's girl. But behind all those perfect Instagram photos and red carpet appearances, cracks were already starting to show. People close to the couple started whispering about arguments, trust issues, and jealousy problems. Saweetie was getting more successful by the day, which some say started to bother Quavo's ego. He was used to being the star in his relationships, but now his girlfriend was becoming just as famous, if not more so, than he was. The real drama, though, was happening within the Migos family dynamic. See, Quavo, Offset, and Takeoff weren't just group members. They were actual family. Quavo and Takeoff were nephew and uncle, and Offset was Quavo's cousin. When you bring a woman into that tight-knit circle, especially someone as attractive and charismatic as Saweetie, it's bound to create some tension. And according to multiple sources, that tension was building way before anyone realized what was really going on. Industry veterans who witnessed their interactions at parties and events later revealed that Saweetie seemed particularly comfortable around Offset. Too comfortable, some might say. While Quavo was handling business or talking to other artists, Saweetie and Offset would often be seen laughing together, having what appeared to be intimate conversations and displaying body language that made people raise their eyebrows. At the time, everyone just assumed it was friendly family vibes, but looking back, those who were paying attention say the signs were all there. The relationship between Quavo and Saweetie officially lasted from 2018 to March 2021. But the final months were reportedly a complete disaster. They were fighting constantly, with sources saying the arguments were getting so heated that people around them were genuinely concerned. Saweetie was allegedly becoming suspicious of Quavo's loyalty, while he was apparently questioning whether she was really as committed to him as she claimed to be. When they finally broke up in March 2021, it was messy as hell. Saweetie took to Twitter and basically accused Quavo of cheating and not being the man she thought he was. Quavo fired back with his own tweets, suggesting that she wasn't as innocent as she pretended to be. The whole thing played out in public, with fans taking sides and the drama reaching peak toxicity. But here's what nobody knew at the time. This public breakup was just the tip of the iceberg. The real bombshell was still buried, waiting to explode and take down everything the Migos had built together. Because while Quavo and Saweetie were publicly throwing shade at each other over alleged cheating, the truth about what really happened during their relationship was so much more devastating than anyone could have imagined. What makes this whole situation even more twisted is that throughout their entire relationship, Offset was right there, playing the role of the supportive cousin and friend. He was in their photos, at their parties, celebrating their milestones, all while allegedly harboring this massive secret that would eventually destroy everything. The level of deception, if the rumors are true, is absolutely mind-blowing. And Saweetie, she played her part perfectly, maintaining her image as the loyal girlfriend while allegedly conducting business behind closed doors that would have shocked her fans to their core. The icy girl persona wasn't just about her music. It was apparently about how cold she could be when it came to loyalty and family bonds. This whole timeline is crucial to understanding why what happened next was so explosive. When family betrays family, and when trust is broken at the deepest possible level, the fallout isn't just personal, it's nuclear. And that's exactly what Quavo was about to drop on the hip-hop world. In October 2022, Quavo dropped a track that sent the hip-hop world into complete chaos. Messy wasn't just another song. It was a lyrical nuclear bomb that exposed family secrets most people never expected to hear. While Quavo never explicitly named names, anyone who understood the context knew exactly who he was talking about, and what he was revealing was absolutely devastating. The song came out of nowhere, with no promotion, no warning, nothing. Just Quavo's pain and anger laid bare over a haunting beat. Industry insiders immediately recognized this wasn't your typical rap beef track. This was personal, this was family, and this was about to change everything forever. From the very first verse, Quavo made it clear he wasn't holding back anymore. He talked about betrayal from people closest to him, people he trusted with his life and his secrets. The way he delivered certain lines, the emphasis he put on specific words, it was obvious he was talking about Offset. And when he started referencing situations that could only be about Saweetie, the pieces of this twisted puzzle finally started coming together. The most shocking part wasn't just that he was calling out Offset, but how he was doing it. Quavo used wordplay and double meanings that were clever enough to avoid direct accusations, but clear enough that everyone in their inner circle knew exactly what he meant. He talked about snakes in his garden, about people wearing masks, about trust being broken in ways that cut deeper than any knife ever could. What really sent fans into detective mode was how Quavo referenced specific incidents that only someone extremely close to the situation would know about. He mentioned private conversations, intimate moments, and behind-the-scenes drama that painted a picture of betrayal so complete it was almost hard to believe. The way he described finding out about the alleged affair suggested it wasn't something he discovered gradually. It sounded like someone told him everything at once, like a confession that destroyed his entire world in a matter of minutes. The timing of the song's release was also crucial. This wasn't just Quavo being petty about an old relationship or stirring up drama for attention. By October 2022, the Migos were already showing serious cracks, with rumors swirling that the group was on the verge of breaking up. Offset had been noticeably absent from several group appearances, and the chemistry between the cousins seemed completely different than it had been in their early days. Industry analysts who broke down the track noted that Quavo's delivery was different from anything he'd ever recorded before. There was a rawness, a genuine hurt in his voice that you can't fake. This wasn't performed anger, this was real pain being channeled through music. The way his voice cracked on certain lines, the pauses he took between specific words, it all pointed to someone who was dealing with trauma that went far beyond typical hip-hop beef. But the most telling aspect of Messy was what Quavo didn't say directly. He never used Saweetie's name, never explicitly called out Offset, and never gave specific details about when or where things happened. Instead, he painted a picture using metaphors and implications that were somehow more damaging than if he had just come out and said everything plainly. It was like he wanted the truth to come out, but he also wanted plausible deniability. The track also revealed something interesting about the timeline of events. Based on the lyrics and the context clues Quavo dropped, it seemed like he had known about the alleged affair for much longer than anyone realized. Some lines suggested he had been carrying this knowledge for months, maybe even over a year, before finally deciding to address it publicly. This means he had been working with Offset, performing with him, appearing in public with him, all while knowing about this ultimate betrayal. What made the whole thing even more twisted was how Quavo addressed the impact this had on their family dynamic. He talked about how the situation didn't just destroy his relationship with Saweetie, it completely shattered the brotherhood he had with his cousins. The Migos weren't just a rap group, they were blood relatives who had been through everything together since childhood. For that bond to be broken by something like this, the pain had to be absolutely unbearable. Hip-hop journalists who analyzed the track also pointed out that Quavo seemed to be addressing not just the alleged affair, but also how it was handled afterward. There were lines that suggested Offset had tried to cover it up, maybe even lied about it when confronted. The sense of betrayal wasn't just about the physical act, it was about the deception, the lies, and the way it made Quavo question everything he thought he knew about people he considered family. The reaction to Messi was immediate and intense. Social media exploded with fans trying to decode every line, every reference, every possible meaning. Hip-hop blogs were working overtime to break down the lyrics and explain the context to fans who weren't familiar with the behind-the-scenes drama. But most importantly, people were waiting to see how Offset would respond. And that response, or lack thereof, would tell the whole story. Because when someone calls you out this publicly, this specifically, and this personally, your reaction says everything about whether the accusations are true or false. The hip-hop world was holding its breath, waiting to see if Offset would deny everything, fire back with his own track, or stay silent and basically confirm what everyone was already starting to suspect. But before we get to that reaction, we need to understand just how much damage this song did to the Migos empire. Because Messi wasn't just Quavo getting something off his chest. It was the beginning of the end for one of hip-hop's most successful groups ever. The fallout from Quavo's cryptic confession didn't just damage personal relationships, it completely obliterated the Migos empire from the inside out. What had taken over a decade to build came crashing down in a matter of months, and the signs of destruction were everywhere if you knew what to look for. By early 2022, people in the industry started noticing that something was seriously wrong with the group's dynamic. Migos had always been known for their incredible chemistry, the way they could finish each other's bars, and how they moved as a unit both on stage and off. But suddenly, that magic was completely gone. During interviews, you could cut the tension with a knife. Quavo and Offset would barely make eye contact, and when they did interact, it felt forced and uncomfortable. The first major red flag came when they started doing separate appearances instead of group bookings. Industry veterans who had worked with Migos for years were shocked when management started fielding requests for individual performances. This was a group that had built their entire brand on being a trio, on that family bond that made them unstoppable. For them to suddenly be willing to split up for shows was like watching a marriage fall apart in real time. Behind the scenes, the situation was even worse than what the public could see. Studio engineers who had worked on Migos projects for years later revealed that recording sessions had become absolutely toxic. Instead of the collaborative energy that had produced their biggest hits, there was this underlying hostility that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. Quavo would lay down his verses and leave immediately. Offset would come in later, often with his own separate crew, creating this weird division that nobody knew how to handle. The alleged Saweetie situation had poisoned everything. Sources close to the group revealed that Quavo couldn't even be in the same room as Offset without the tension becoming unbearable. This wasn't just about a woman. This was about fundamental trust being broken at the deepest possible level. When family betrays family, especially in a way that involves such intimate personal matters, the damage goes far beyond what outsiders can understand. What made everything worse was how this betrayal affected their business relationships. Migos had built a massive empire together, with shared investments, joint ventures, and collaborative deals worth millions of dollars. Suddenly, all of those partnerships became complicated because the core relationship was completely destroyed. Record label executives were scrambling to figure out how to handle contracts that were based on the group staying together. The impact extended beyond just Quavo and Offset. Takeoff, who was caught in the middle of this family drama, found himself in an impossible position. He was blood related to Quavo, but had also been extremely close to Offset for years. Industry insiders revealed that Takeoff was desperately trying to play peacemaker, attempting to get his family members to work through their issues for the sake of everything they had built together. But the damage was too severe. By mid-2022, it became clear that the group was finished as a cohesive unit. They stopped appearing together publicly, except for contractual obligations that they couldn't get out of. When they did perform together, fans could immediately sense that something was wrong. The energy was different, the interactions felt scripted, and the genuine love and respect that had always been visible between them was completely absent. The business side of their breakup was absolutely devastating. Migos had been one of the most bankable acts in hip-hop, with touring revenue in the tens of millions per year. Their merchandise deals, streaming numbers, and brand partnerships were all built on the idea of them being a unified group. When that unity disappeared, the financial implications were staggering. Record industry analysts estimated that the group's breakup cost them somewhere between $50 and $100 million in lost opportunities. Tours had to be canceled, collaborative projects were shelved, and brand deals fell through because companies didn't want to get involved in what was clearly becoming a messy family feud. The most heartbreaking aspect of the whole situation was watching how it affected their individual artistry. Migos had always brought out the best in each other creatively. Quavo's melodic hooks, Offset's rapid-fire delivery, and Takeoff's smooth flow created this perfect storm of talent that couldn't be replicated by any of them individually. When that collaborative magic disappeared, their solo work immediately suffered. Industry professionals who had worked with the group for years were genuinely shocked by how quickly everything fell apart. One prominent producer revealed that he had worked on several Migos projects and had never seen a group with better chemistry. To watch that chemistry completely evaporate over personal drama was like watching a masterpiece painting get destroyed right in front of your eyes. The ripple effects extended throughout the Atlanta hip-hop scene. Migos had been mentors and inspirations to countless up-and-coming artists, and their breakup sent shockwaves through the entire community. Young rappers who had looked up to them as the perfect example of how to maintain success while staying loyal to family were left wondering how something so solid could collapse so completely. What made the situation even more tragic was the timing. Migos had been at the absolute peak of their powers, with multiple chart-topping hits and a level of cultural influence that few rap groups ever achieve. They weren't breaking up because they were washed up or had run out of creative juice. They were destroying their empire while they were still on top, all because personal betrayal had made it impossible for them to function as a unit. The alleged Saweetie situation had created a wound so deep that no amount of money, success, or shared history could heal it. When trust is broken at that level, especially within a family, the damage often proves to be irreparable. And unfortunately for Migos fans around the world, that's exactly what happened here. But the story was far from over, because while Quavo and Offset were destroying everything they had built together, tragedy was lurking around the corner that would change the entire narrative and make their personal drama seem insignificant in comparison to what was about to happen to their family. To fully understand how deep this betrayal allegedly went, we need to revisit one of the most shocking moments in Saweetie's public history, the elevator incident with her ex-boyfriend Quavo that surfaced in March 2021. At the time, most people viewed it as an isolated incident between a couple having relationship problems. But when you connect it to the larger Migos drama and the alleged affair with Offset, a much more disturbing picture starts to emerge. The elevator footage showed a physical altercation between Saweetie and Quavo that left fans absolutely stunned. This wasn't just a heated argument. This was a situation that got completely out of control, with both parties engaging in behavior that shocked everyone who saw it. When the video first leaked, most people focused on the immediate drama and the questions it raised about their toxic relationship dynamic. But industry insiders who knew about the alleged Offset situation later revealed that this elevator incident might have been connected to much bigger issues than anyone realized at the time. Sources close to the situation suggested that the fight wasn't just about typical relationship problems. It was potentially about Quavo confronting Saweetie about her alleged involvement with his cousin. What makes this connection even more significant is the timing. The elevator incident happened in early 2021, which means Quavo might have already discovered or suspected the alleged affair months before he publicly addressed it in his music. This would explain why their breakup was so incredibly messy and why both sides seemed to have so much ammunition against each other. Looking back at Saweetie's behavior during this period, there were signs that something much deeper was going on. Her social media posts became increasingly cryptic, with references to betrayal, fake friends, and people not being who they pretend to be. At the time, fans assumed she was talking about Quavo, but knowing what we know now, those posts take on a completely different meaning. The most disturbing aspect of connecting these dots is what it reveals about the timeline of deception. If the alleged affair with Offset had been going on for an extended period, it means Saweetie was maintaining relationships with multiple members of the same family while keeping massive secrets from all of them. The level of manipulation and deception required to pull something like that off is absolutely mind-blowing. Industry professionals who worked with Saweetie during this period later revealed that her behavior had become increasingly erratic. She was reportedly paranoid about people talking behind her back, constantly checking her phone, and seemed to be managing multiple complicated relationships simultaneously. One music executive described her as someone who appeared to be living in constant fear that her secrets would be exposed. The elevator incident also reveals something crucial about Quavo's state of mind during this period. The anger and frustration he displayed wasn't just about a relationship gone wrong. It was potentially about discovering that someone he loved and trusted had been betraying him with his own family member. That kind of betrayal would drive anyone to an emotional breaking point. What makes this whole situation even more twisted is how Saweetie handled the aftermath of the elevator incident. Instead of laying low and trying to rebuild her reputation quietly, she seemed to double down on her victim narrative while allegedly continuing to harbor secrets that would have destroyed that narrative completely if they had come out at the time. The incident also sheds new light on the Migos family dynamics during this period. If Offset knew that Quavo had discovered or suspected their alleged affair, it would explain why the group's chemistry started deteriorating so rapidly. Everyone was walking around with massive secrets, trying to maintain professional relationships while dealing with personal betrayals that cut to the core of their family bonds. Music industry analysts who studied Saweetie's career trajectory noted that her behavior patterns around this time suggested someone who was juggling multiple complicated relationships while trying to maintain her public image. The stress of managing that kind of deception, especially when it involved family members who were constantly in each other's lives, would have been absolutely overwhelming. The elevator incident becomes even more significant when you consider how it affected public perception of Saweetie's character. Many fans were already questioning her loyalty and trustworthiness based on how she handled that situation. If the alleged affair with Offset had become public knowledge at the same time, it would have completely destroyed her career and reputation. What's particularly disturbing about this whole timeline is how it reveals the extent of the deception allegedly taking place. Saweetie wasn't just keeping secrets from Quavo. She was potentially keeping secrets from Offset's wife, Cardi B, from Takeoff, and from countless other people in their extended circle. The ripple effects of that kind of betrayal extend far beyond just the people directly involved. The incident also explains why Quavo's later musical responses were so filled with genuine pain and anger. This wasn't just about discovering infidelity. It was about realizing that someone he had trusted completely had been playing elaborate games with his emotions and his family relationships for potentially months or even years. Looking back at the elevator footage with this new context, you can see that Quavo's reaction wasn't just about whatever immediate issue they were arguing about. There was a deeper level of hurt and betrayal in his behavior that suggested he was dealing with much more significant issues than typical relationship drama. The whole situation becomes a perfect storm of deception, betrayal, and family destruction that goes far beyond what anyone could have imagined when that elevator video first surfaced. It shows how personal betrayals can have massive public consequences and how secrets have a way of destroying everything in their path when they finally come to light. But even with all of this drama swirling around them, nobody could have predicted the tragedy that was about to strike the Migos family and change everything forever. On November 1st, 2022, the hip-hop world was shaken to its core when news broke that Takeoff had been tragically killed in a shooting outside a Houston bowling alley. But for Quavo and Offset, this wasn't just the loss of a group member or even a friend. This was the loss of family, and it happened at the worst possible time in their relationship. The timing of Takeoff's death was absolutely devastating because it came right in the middle of the family feud that had been tearing the Migos apart. Here were two cousins who had been at each other's throats over alleged betrayals and broken trust, and suddenly, they were forced to confront the reality that their beef had cost them precious time with someone they both loved deeply. Industry insiders revealed that Takeoff had been desperately trying to keep the group together in the months leading up to his death. He was the peacemaker, the one trying to get Quavo and Offset to work through their issues for the sake of their shared legacy and family bond. Sources close to the group said that Takeoff was genuinely heartbroken, watching his family members destroy everything they had built together over personal drama. The most gut-wrenching aspect of the whole situation was that Takeoff died while his family was divided. This wasn't like losing someone after you've made peace and said everything you needed to say. This was losing someone while there were still unresolved conflicts, harsh words that couldn't be taken back, and broken relationships that would now never have the chance to be fully repaired. For Quavo, the loss was particularly devastating because Takeoff wasn't just his cousin. He was like a younger brother who had looked up to him since childhood. They had started their musical journey together, and Takeoff had always been loyal and supportive, even when the group dynamics became toxic. Losing him while dealing with all the drama surrounding the alleged Saweetie situation created a level of grief and guilt that was almost unbearable. The impact on Offset was equally profound, but in a different way. If the allegations about his involvement with Saweetie were true, he had to live with the knowledge that his actions had contributed to the family division that defined Takeoff's final months. The weight of that guilt, combined with the genuine grief of losing someone he cared about, created an emotional burden that few people could comprehend. What made the tragedy even more heartbreaking was how it exposed the petty nature of their beef. Here they had been fighting over a woman and damaged pride, while their family member was trying to hold everything together. Suddenly, all of those personal grievances seemed insignificant compared to the permanent loss they were now facing. The funeral became a moment of forced reconciliation, but it was the kind of reconciliation that comes too late to fix everything that had been broken. Quavo and Offset had to stand together and mourn publicly, while privately dealing with all of the unresolved issues that had driven them apart. The pain of loss was mixed with regret, anger, and the crushing realization that their family feud had robbed them of precious time with Takeoff. Industry professionals who attended the funeral later described it as one of the most emotionally devastating events they had ever witnessed. This wasn't just about mourning a talented artist who died too young. It was about watching a family grapple with the consequences of letting personal drama interfere with their bonds. The grief was complicated by guilt, regret, and the knowledge that some things can never be undone. In the weeks following Takeoff's death, both Quavo and Offset were forced to confront some harsh realities about their priorities and their behavior. The alleged Saweetie situation, which had seemed so important and devastating just months before, suddenly felt trivial in comparison to the permanent loss they were dealing with. You can't bring back someone who's gone, but you can waste years fighting over things that ultimately don't matter. The tragedy also forced them to think about Takeoff's legacy and what he would have wanted for his family. He had spent his final months trying to bring them together, trying to preserve the group and the family bond that meant everything to him. His death became a stark reminder that life is too short to let personal grievances destroy the relationships that matter most. Music industry executives who worked with the group noted that Takeoff's death created a sobering moment of clarity for both surviving members. The petty beef, the he said, she said drama, the social media battles, all of it seemed incredibly hollow when compared to the reality of losing someone permanently. It forced them to ask themselves whether their pride and hurt feelings were worth destroying everything Takeoff had worked to preserve. The most tragic aspect of the whole situation was that Takeoff never got to see his family reconcile. He died while they were still divided, still harboring resentments and refusing to work through their issues. That knowledge had to weigh heavily on both Quavo and Offset as they processed their grief and tried to figure out how to move forward. The loss also highlighted how the alleged Saweetie drama had affected not just the main players, but everyone in their extended family and professional circle. Takeoff had been collateral damage in a conflict that wasn't even directly about him, and his death served as a wake-up call about the real cost of letting personal betrayals spiral out of control. But perhaps the most significant impact of Takeoff's death was how it forced Quavo and Offset to start questioning whether their beef was worth continuing. When you lose someone that important, it tends to put everything else in perspective. The alleged affair, the broken trust, the damaged pride, all of it had to be reevaluated in the context of what really matters in life. However, even with this tragic wake-up call, the wounds between the cousins were still too fresh and too deep for an immediate reconciliation. The grief and guilt created new layers of complexity in their relationship. and it would take time for them to work through all of the emotions and issues that Takeoff's death had brought to the surface. Just when it seemed like the Migos drama might finally be settling into the background, DJ Akademiks decided to blow everything wide open again. In late 2024, during one of his notorious live streams, Akademiks dropped what he claimed were insider details about the Quavo Offset Saweetie situation that sent the hip-hop internet into absolute chaos. Akademiks has built his entire brand on being the guy who knows all the industry secrets, and he's never been one to hold back when he thinks he has exclusive information. But this particular live stream was different. This wasn't just gossip or speculation. He was claiming to have received information directly from people who were allegedly involved in the situation, and the details he shared were absolutely explosive. The timing of Akademiks' revelation was particularly significant because it came at a moment when both Quavo and Offset seemed to be slowly healing from their family trauma. They had started making occasional public appearances together, and there were signs that they might finally be working toward some kind of reconciliation in honor of Takeoff's memory. Then Akademiks dropped his bombshell and dragged everything back into the spotlight. What made his live stream so damaging was the level of detail he claimed to have. Akademiks wasn't just repeating old rumors or rehashing speculation that had been floating around for years. He was allegedly sharing specific information about when things happened, where they happened, and how the alleged affair between Offset and Saweetie was supposedly discovered by Quavo. According to Akademiks, his sources had provided him with information that painted an even more disturbing picture than what most people had already assumed. He claimed that the alleged relationship between Offset and Saweetie had been going on much longer than anyone realized, and that it involved a level of deception and betrayal that was almost unbelievable. The most shocking part of Akademiks' claims was his assertion that Quavo had actually been given evidence of the alleged affair. Not just suspicions or rumors. He suggested that someone close to the situation had provided Quavo with proof that was so undeniable that it completely shattered his ability to maintain any kind of relationship with Offset going forward. What made the whole situation even more explosive was how Akademiks presented the information. He wasn't just sharing gossip for entertainment value. He was positioning himself as someone who was finally revealing the truth about one of hip-hop's biggest mysteries. The confidence with which he shared these alleged details suggested that he genuinely believed he had access to reliable sources. The reaction to the live stream was immediate and intense. Within hours, clips from the stream were circulating on every social media platform, with fans dissecting every word Akademiks had said. Hip-hop blogs were working overtime to analyze his claims and try to verify whether there was any truth to the explosive allegations he had made. But the most telling reaction came from the silence of the main players involved. Neither Quavo nor Offset responded to Akademiks' claims, and Saweetie remained completely quiet about the situation. In the world of hip-hop drama, that kind of silence often speaks louder than any denial or confirmation could. Industry insiders who were familiar with the original situation found Akademiks' claims particularly disturbing because they aligned with rumors that had been circulating privately for years. The details he shared weren't completely out of left field. They seemed to build on information that people in the industry had been whispering about, but never felt comfortable discussing publicly. What made the live stream especially damaging was how it reignited all of the old wounds at a time when the family was trying to heal. Takeoff's death had created an opportunity for Quavo and Offset to potentially work through their issues and rebuild their relationship. Akademiks' decision to drag everything back into the public eye made that healing process infinitely more difficult. The timing was also problematic because it came at a moment when both Quavo and Offset were trying to establish their individual careers and move forward from the Migos breakup. Having all of this personal drama thrust back into the spotlight created unwanted distractions and forced them to relive painful memories they were trying to put behind them. Hip-hop media analysts noted that Akademiks' live stream represented a new level of invasiveness in how personal celebrity drama gets covered. This wasn't just reporting on public feuds or obvious conflicts. This was allegedly exposing private family business that the people involved had clearly chosen not to discuss publicly. The most disturbing aspect of the whole situation was how it demonstrated the way personal trauma can be exploited for content and clicks. Here was a family that had already been through unimaginable loss and pain, and their private drama was being dissected and analyzed for public entertainment. But perhaps most significantly, academics' livestream showed how difficult it is for celebrities to ever truly move past their controversies, even when they try to heal privately and rebuild their relationships away from the public eye. There's always someone willing to drag their business back into the spotlight for views and engagement. The fallout from the live stream created new tensions and complications for everyone involved, proving that some secrets have a way of haunting people long after they think the drama has been resolved. And unfortunately for Quavo and Offset, this latest revelation would force them to confront their issues all over again, just when they thought they might finally be able to move forward. As we move through 2024 and into 2025, the relationship between Quavo and Offset has evolved into something that's both complex and cautiously hopeful. The raw anger and public feuding that dominated 2022 and early 2023 has gradually given way to a more mature approach to handling their family drama, though the scars from their alleged betrayal still run incredibly deep. The first real sign of potential reconciliation came in late 2023, almost a year after Takeoff's tragic death. Industry insiders noticed that both cousins had stopped making subtle digs at each other in interviews and on social media. The passive-aggressive posts and cryptic song lyrics that had characterized their feud for months suddenly disappeared, replaced by a more respectful silence that suggested they were both trying to process their grief and anger more privately. Behind the scenes, sources close to both artists revealed that they had begun communicating through intermediaries, primarily family members who were desperately trying to help them work through their issues. Takeoff's mother reportedly played a crucial role in these early reconciliation efforts, reminding both men that her son's final wish had been to see his family united and working together. The breakthrough moment came during a private family gathering in early 2024, where Quavo and Offset found themselves in the same room for the first time since their public feud had exploded. According to witnesses, the initial tension was almost unbearable, but by the end of the evening, they had managed to have their first civil conversation in over 2 years. That conversation wasn't about forgiveness or completely moving past their issues. It was about acknowledging the pain they had both caused and received, and recognizing that their beef was dishonoring Takeoff's memory and legacy. Industry professionals who knew about the meeting described it as a first step rather than a complete resolution, but it represented significant progress from where they had been. Throughout 2024, eagle-eyed fans began noticing subtle signs that suggested the cousins were slowly rebuilding their relationship. They started appearing at some of the same industry events, though they maintained careful distance and didn't interact publicly. Their social media activity also became less hostile, with both artists focusing more on promoting their individual projects rather than taking shots at each other. The most significant development came when both Quavo and Offset participated in tribute events honoring Takeoff's memory. While they didn't perform together or make any grand public statements about reconciliation, their willingness to support the same causes and appear at the same events suggested that they were prioritizing their shared love for their fallen family member over their personal grievances. Music industry executives who have worked with both artists noted that their individual projects during this period reflected their evolving mindsets. Quavo's solo work became more introspective and focused on personal growth, while Offset's music showed signs of genuine remorse and reflection about the consequences of his actions. Neither artist was explicitly addressing their beef, but the emotional maturity in their work suggested they were both processing their experiences more thoughtfully. The alleged Saweetie situation, which had been the catalyst for their entire feud, gradually became less of a focal point in their individual narratives. Both men seemed to recognize that continuing to rehash that drama publicly wasn't serving anyone's best interests, especially when it came to honoring Takeoff's legacy and rebuilding their family relationships. However, the reconciliation process hasn't been smooth or linear. There have been setbacks, moments of renewed tension, and periods where it seemed like they might be sliding back into their old patterns of hostility. The damage that was done during their most toxic period created trust issues that don't disappear overnight. and both men have had to work through genuine trauma related to their family breakdown. Industry insiders, familiar with their current relationship, describe it as cautiously optimistic, but still fragile. They're not back to being best friends or creative collaborators, but they've reached a point where they can coexist respectfully and support each other from a distance. For many observers, this represents remarkable progress, considering how completely their relationship had deteriorated just a few years earlier. The impact of Academic's recent livestream did create some temporary tension and forced them to relive some painful memories. But sources suggest that both men handled it more maturely than they would have during the height of their feud. Instead of lashing out at each other or reigniting their public beef, they reportedly chose to maintain their focus on moving forward rather than getting dragged back into old drama. Current speculation about their future suggests that a full creative reunion is still unlikely in the immediate future. The wounds from their alleged betrayal and the circumstances surrounding Takeoff's death have created complications that extend beyond typical creative differences. However, many industry professionals believe that they're laying the groundwork for a potential collaboration down the road, possibly as a tribute to Takeoff's memory. What seems most likely for their immediate future is continued parallel success as solo artists who maintain respectful family relationships. They've both proven that they can create successful music independently, and they've both shown growth in how they handle personal conflicts and public scrutiny. The most encouraging sign for fans hoping for eventual reconciliation is that both men seem committed to learning from their mistakes and prioritizing family over ego. The alleged Saweetie situation taught them harsh lessons about trust, loyalty, and the consequences of letting personal drama interfere with family bonds. As we look toward the future, the relationship between Quavo and Offset serves as a complex case study in how families can work through devastating betrayals and still find ways to move forward together, even if that movement is slow and sometimes painful.